Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Always exciting.
Yeah, so today we're going to be looking into the career of Carlene Bills.
Okay.
She's currently the president and CEO of Ford Component Sales at Ford Motor Company.
Wow, impressive title.
It is.
Yeah.
And she's had this really interesting, non-traditional kind of rise within Ford.
Okay.
And she's also become a really big advocate for women in leadership.
I like it.
So we're going to be kind of dissecting this interview that she did,
Okay.
where she shared some of her, best advice and experiences.
Right.
And hopefully by the end of this, deep dive,
Yeah.
you'll have some takeaways
Mm-hmm.
that you can apply to your own career journey.
Sounds good.
All right. So, right off the bat, she starts talking about this white space strategy.
White space.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what exactly does she mean by that?
So, it's basically like a term that she uses to describe those undefined areas within an organization. And so they're, places where there's room for innovation and really a chance to make a real impact.
Gotcha.
And her mentor encouraged her to actively seek out these white spaces.
Interesting.
And it's fascinating to see how she's applied that advice, in her career.
So it's not just about finding these areas.
Right.
It's about what you do with them.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, for example, she gives an example from early in her career where, she saw a chance to improve how Ford was handling customer data.
Oh.
And it wasn't, necessarily like her assigned task.
Right.
But she took the initiative to kind of, develop a proposal and present it to her manager.
Wow.
So it was a risk, but it paid off.
So by stepping outside her defined role,
Right.
she created her own white space
Exactly.
to prove her capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
Yeah, because a great example of taking a calculated risk that, can lead to big rewards.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
But I imagine it wasn't always smooth sailing.
of course not.
She mentions the staircase metaphor for her career journey.
Okay.
What were some of the obstacles she encountered on her way up?
So, she talks about facing some real challenges,
Sure.
especially early on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She encountered some skepticism from colleagues
Okay.
who questioned her unconventional approach.
Interesting.
And even later, when she was leading these large teams, she had to deal with, internal politics and resistance to change.
So the staircase had some missing steps.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Maybe even some tripwires along the way.
Definitely some tripwires.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
She even joked about having chairs coming down the stairs.
Ew.
Talk about adding insult to injury.
Ouch.
But, what's really inspiring is that she never let these setbacks derail her. She just found ways to jump over them, maintain her momentum, and never give up on her goals.
I love that it makes you wonder if those challenges actually fueled her determination even more.
I think you're right. It's like facing adversity forced her to become even more resilient and resourceful,
Absolutely.
which I think is,
Yeah.
an important takeaway for all of us.
Yeah, definitely. Now, another thing that really struck me was Carlene's candid admission about not always being assertive enough,
Oh, yeah.
especially when it came to things like compensation. It sounds like she learned a really valuable lesson about the power of asking for what you want.
This is where her story takes a really interesting turn.
Okay.
She talks about how she used to believe that her work should just speak for itself
Right.
and that, recognition would naturally follow.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, she realized that that wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
And it was a turning point when her coach in the Women Rising program gave her some game-changing advice.
I'm dying to know what the advice was.
Yeah.
Did the coach tell her to be more vocal about her accomplishment?
The coach basically told her to be more direct in asking for what she deserved,
Okay.
especially when it came to compensation. And what's interesting is that Carlene initially resisted this advice.
Really?
She felt uncomfortable advocating for herself in such a direct way.
Wow, okay. Yeah, it's interesting how we can sometimes hold ourselves back, from asking for what we want.
It's so true.
It's almost like we're afraid to rock the boat or something.
Yeah, and I think especially for women, there can be this societal pressure to be agreeable and not come across as too demanding.
Right, right.
But her coach really challenged her to rethink those assumptions.
So how did she overcome that hesitation?
Well, it sounds like she had a bit of an aha moment,
Okay.
She realized that by not speaking up, she was actually doing herself a disservice.
Interesting.
She wasn't fully owning her value and contributions.
So what did she do differently? Did she start marching into her boss's office and demanding a raise?
Not quite.
Okay.
She started by simply being more transparent about her goals and expectations. So, for example, during performance reviews, she made a point of, outlining her accomplishments and how they aligned with the company's objectives.
Gotcha.
And she also started documenting her contributions more diligently,
Okay.
really creating a paper trail of her successes.
That's so smart by putting it in writing, as she says.
Yes.
She's not just relying on memory or chance encounters,
No.
to showcase her work.
Right.
She's creating a concrete record of her impact.
Exactly. And it makes it much harder for those contributions to be overlooked or dismissed.
Right.
It's a subtle but powerful way of advocating for yourself.
It's like she's shifting the conversation from what I think I deserve to here's what I've achieved.
Exactly.
I love that.
And it's not about bragging or being arrogant. It's about presenting a clear and factual case for your value.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if we could all benefit from being a bit more intentional about documenting our achievements.
For sure.
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and forget to track those wins.
Absolutely. It's something I'm trying to be more mindful of in my own work.
Yeah.
Just, creating a simple log of projects, accomplishments, positive feedback. That can be incredibly helpful when it comes time for performance reviews or even just advocating for yourself in general.
For sure. Now, another theme that comes up repeatedly in the interview is the importance of mentorship and coaching.
Yes.
Carlene specifically credits the Women Rising program and her coach for playing a pivotal role in her advancement.
She says that having that external guidance and support was crucial,
Okay.
especially during those times when she faced setbacks or felt unsure of her next steps.
So it's not just about having someone to cheer you on.
Awesome.
It's about having someone who can provide honest feedback.
Yes.
And help you navigate those tricky situations.
Absolutely. And she makes the point that you don't have to be in a formal program to benefit from mentorship or coaching.
Okay.
It can be a colleague, a friend, or even someone you admire from afar.
Yeah.
Whose career path you find inspiring.
It's interesting that she mentions finding inspiration from people you might not even know personally.
Yeah.
It reminds you that idea of having a board of directors in your mind.
I love that.
People you look up to and whose advice you can imagine seeking even if you've never met them.
Yes, creating your own personal advisory board.
Right.
Drawing on the wisdom and experience of people you respect.
It also makes mentorship a bit less intimidating.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to find one perfect mentor who has all the answers. You can build a network of people who offer different perspectives and insights.
That's a great way to think about it.
Now, something else that stood out to me was Carlene's way of breaking down her career into these 3 distinct phases.
Okay.
I thought it was really insightful.
Yeah.
Can you remind us what those phases are?
So she calls them the puppy phase,
Yeah.
the do something phase, and the legacy phase.
I love that. Those labels are so descriptive.
They are.
Tell me more about what each phase entails.
Okay, so the puppy phase is that early stage in your career where you're fresh out of school, you're eager to learn,
Yeah.
and maybe a little bit clumsy, but full of enthusiasm.
Sure.
It's all about exploring different areas, soaking up knowledge,
Yeah.
figuring out where you fit in.
You're trying to find your footing.
Yeah.
Get a feel for the terrain.
Yeah.
It's also a time when you're probably making a few mistakes along the way.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
It's a time for experimentation and learning from those missteps.
Right.
And then, as you gain experience and confidence, you transition into what she calls the do something phase.
Okay, this is where you start to make your mark.
Exactly. You're not just learning anymore.
Yeah.
You're building, creating, and making a tangible impact. You're focused on achieving concrete results and establishing yourself as a valuable contributor.
And it's probably during this phase that you start to get a clearer sense of your long-term aspirations.
Right.
You start to think about what you really want to achieve in your career.
Carlene actually talks about how it was during this phase that she started to ask herself, what do I want to be when I grow up?
Wow.
She started looking at role models and thinking about the steps she needed to take to reach her goals.
It sounds like this is where mentorship and coaching can be especially valuable.
Totally.
Having someone to guide you and provide feedback as you navigate this phase of growth.
I completely agree. And then you reach what Carlene refers to as the legacy phase.
Okay, what does she mean by legacy? Is it about leaving a lasting impact on the organization?
It's more about shifting your focus from personal achievement to helping others succeed.
Okay.
It's about using your experience and knowledge to mentor and support the next generation,
Yeah.
ensuring they have the tools and guidance to navigate their own career paths.
It's beautiful how she frames it as a cycle of giving back.
I know. It's great.
You start by learning from others.
Mm,
You then establish yourself and make your own contributions.
right.
And then you turn around and use that experience to lift others up.
It's like creating a ripple effect of success and empowerment.
It makes you think about where you are in your own journey. Are you still in the puppy phase figuring things out, or are you in the do something phase building and creating?
For sure.
Or maybe you're starting to think about what your legacy will be.
Yeah, it's a great framework for reflecting on your own career path and thinking about what you want to accomplish in each stage.
Now, throughout the interview, there's this underlying emphasis on the importance of finding work that you truly enjoy.
Mm,
Carlene makes this great statement. She says, "When I stop smiling and I stop enjoying what I do, it's going to be time to go bye-bye."
I love that.
It's such a simple but powerful reminder that work shouldn't feel like a constant grind.
That's so true.
I think it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that work has to be hard, that it's all about pushing through and enduring.
Especially in today's hustle culture,
Right.
where there's this pressure to constantly be striving and achieving.
But Carlene's message is so refreshing.
Yeah.
She's saying that it's okay to prioritize enjoyment and fulfillment. It's okay to seek out work that brings you joy.
And it's not just about feeling good.
Yeah.
It's about being more engaged and productive.
Right.
When you're doing something you love, you naturally bring more energy and creativity to it.
I also think it ties back to that idea of having a lasting impact.
Right.
If you're not genuinely passionate about what you're doing, it's going to be much harder to sustain that level of commitment and dedication over the long term.
That's a really insightful point.
It's about finding that sweet spot where your passions align with your contributions.
Yes.
Where you're not just going through the motions, but actually making a difference in something you care about.
That's a great way to put it.
Now, as we're getting close to the end of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to make sure we revisit some of Carlene's key insights.
Of course.
Because they're worth repeating.
Absolutely. So, to recap, she emphasizes the importance of embracing white space,
Yes.
finding those areas where you can innovate and make a real impact.
She talks about the power of perseverance, of finding ways to overcome obstacles and never giving up on your goals.
Yeah. And we can't forget her advice on being candid about your worth,
Right.
learning to advocate for yourself and articulate your goals and expectations clearly.
And that ties into the importance of seeking out mentors and coaches who can provide guidance and support along the way.
And of course, her message about finding work that you genuinely enjoy.
Yes.
That brings you a sense of fulfillment and purpose.
All incredibly valuable insights. But it's one thing to hear this advice, it's another to actually apply it. I'm curious, from all the things we've discussed, what stands out to you as the most actionable takeaway?
I think for me, it's that white space concept.
Yeah.
It's just such a practical way to think about creating opportunities for yourself, even within an existing role or organization.
Yeah.
You know, it's about being proactive and looking for those gaps where you can contribute something unique or solve a problem that others haven't addressed.
I agree. It's really empowering.
It is.
It's like she's saying you don't have to wait for permission or for someone to hand you the perfect opportunity.
Right.
You can create it yourself.
Exactly. And it shifts the mindset, you know, from being passive to being active, from waiting to be noticed to making yourself indispensable.
What about you thinking about your own career? Is there an area where you could apply this white space strategy?
You know, there is.
Uh-huh.
We've been talking about expanding our digital content, but it's been on the back burner.
Yeah.
I think I could use Carlene's approach, do some research, put together a proposal, and present it as a way to fill a need and add value.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like you're already taking action.
Got to get on it.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought from Carlene that really resonated with me.
Okay.
She said, "When I get tired, it's going to be time to go bye-bye. When I stop smiling and I stop enjoying what I do, it's going to be time to go bye-bye."
I love that.
It's a reminder that we have a choice.
Yeah.
We don't have to stay in jobs that drain us or make us unhappy.
Right.
We can seek out opportunities that bring us joy and fulfillment.
And sometimes that means taking a risk, stepping outside our comfort zone and embracing the unknown.
Just like Carlene.
Exactly.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the incredible career journey of Carlene Bills. We hope you found her story inspiring and her advice actionable.
And remember, as Carlene says, it's never too late to create your own white space and start building a career that you truly love.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Bye, everyone.